It was already late at night, and everyone in the pavilion was resting. Willow Green saw Vincent Crawford leading her people in and quickly tried to stop them. "Second miss, what are you trying to do? Our lady is resting, you cannot barge in." Currently, Claire Crawford was in charge of the Marquis's residence, so everyone there respected her. Even Willow Green held a higher status, but now Vincent Crawford was barging in like this, which was truly outrageous. "Step aside." Vincent Crawford would not heed the words of a mere maid. Today, she was determined to break in and let everyone know that Prince Lance was with Claire Crawford, thus avoiding her own marriage to him. Faced with Willow Green's resistance, she pushed her aside. "How dare a lowly servant like you stop me? Watch out, or I'll sell you off. Move." Vincent Crawford then attempted to storm in, but Willow Green was resolute in her efforts to block her, resulting in a slap to the face. The commotion reached Claire Crawford's door, and a calm voice came from inside. "Willow Green, let my second sister in." Only then did Willow Green open the door, and Vincent Crawford was stunned by the scene inside. When did Prince Lance come to her lady's room? And what happened to him? The most shocked was Vincent Crawford, expecting to catch Prince Lance and Claire Crawford in a compromising situation. But what did she find? Indeed, Prince Lance and Claire Crawford were in the room, but Prince Lance had been beaten to a pulp, and Claire Crawford stood there holding a stick, smiling at Vincent Crawford. In that moment, Vincent Crawford saw a murderous glint in Claire Crawford's eyes, something she had never seen before. Vincent Crawford had always dismissed Claire Crawford as a weak, flattering fool, not worth her attention. But this disdain had allowed Claire Crawford to grow quietly, and at an astonishing rate. "Second sister, what do you mean by barging into my private quarters?" Claire Crawford's status now was worlds apart from Vincent Crawford's. Though Vincent Crawford was still the legitimate daughter of the Marquis's house, Claire Crawford now managed the household affairs and wielded much more power. Moreover, Claire Crawford had been granted the title of Princess Anping by the Emperor himself, while Vincent Crawford was nothing in comparison. I came to check on you, to see how you are. But how could you raise your hand against Prince Lance?" Vincent Crawford stammered, unable to believe how her carefully laid plan had backfired so spectacularly. She couldn't figure it out. Why was Prince Lance so useless? He couldn't even handle a young maid? And yet, he ended up beaten like this and had already fainted. She certainly couldn't have guessed that Prince Lance had been drugged by Claire Crawford first, rendering him unable to move, and then beaten by her. The most infuriating part was that even after he revealed his identity, Claire Crawford didn't believe him. She severely injured him before lighting a candle, then pretended to apologize, claiming she didn't know he was truly Prince Lance and questioning why he was in her private quarters. Prince Lance, unable to explain himself, eventually fainted from exhaustion. Vincent Crawford looked at the unconscious Prince Lance and then thought of using his identity to question, "Elder sister, you still haven't answered me. Why did you lead people into my courtyard in the middle of the night? What were you doing?" Claire Crawford squinted and posed the question, exuding an undeniable aura. Vincent Crawford, nearly overwhelmed by this forceful presence, stammered, "Didn't I already say? I came to visit you." His Highness, Prince Lance, said he wanted to visit. How could you dare lay hands on His Highness? After Vincent Crawford spoke, Claire Crawford stood up, not bothering to answer her question. She glanced at the maid next to Vincent Crawford, February Moon. "Were you the one who attacked my people?" Claire Crawford asked as she acted, delivering a slap. Before Vincent Crawford could respond, Claire Crawford broke one of February Moon's arms, Vincent Crawford's maid. "I advise you, elder sister, not to speak further. As your maid, she should have advised you against causing a scene, leading people into my quarters in the middle of the night, and attempting to destroy my peach blossom pavilion. Do you think father would forgive you if he found out?" Vincent Crawford knew she was in the wrong. Today, she indeed intended to scheme against Claire Crawford. But she wanted to keep it from Lord Crawford, deceiving him and going against his wishes. If Lord Crawford found out, Vincent Crawford believed she would certainly be punished. "Willow Green, send someone to take February Moon away, find someone to sell her off, and let everyone in the mansion know that the mansion has rules." Claire Crawford didn't directly conflict with Vincent Crawford but dealt with February Moon, who had been with Vincent since childhood. At this moment, February Moon was crying miserably, clutching Vincent Crawford's pant leg, pleading, "Miss, save me, I don't want to be sold." Despite her desperate cries, February Moon was eventually dragged away. Claire Crawford silently slapped Vincent Crawford in the face, yet she dared not make a big deal out of it. Just as Vincent Crawford was about to leave, Claire Crawford called out, "Wait." "Vincent." Crawford frowned, turned to Claire, and angrily asked, "Claire Crawford, you've already sent February Moon away, what more do you want? Don't push your luck." Despite Vincent's gritted teeth, Claire remained calm and even smiled. A beauty in anger is truly stunning. Although Vincent Crawford was reckless, she was indeed a beauty, albeit a venomous one. February Moon made a mistake and was punished accordingly. "If you're dissatisfied, you can talk to Father. No matter how busy I am, I'll confront you before him. But this pig's head on the ground is your doing, and you'll have to take it back. Don't dirty my peach blossom pavilion." The pig's head Claire referred to was Prince Lance, who lay unconscious on the ground after being severely beaten. Claire Crawford, being a war goddess, ensured he wouldn't wake until at least the next day. Vincent Crawford felt uneasy seeing Prince Lance unconscious, like swallowing a fly, and reluctantly ordered someone to take him away. She didn't dare confront Claire directly, nor did she want the Earl of Crawford to find out about today's events, so she discreetly moved Prince Lance. With no other options, Vincent Crawford could only arrange for Prince Lance to stay in her courtyard. Truly a case of reaping what one sows. Despite her disdain for Prince Lance, she couldn't just throw him out. Unfortunately, Vincent didn't realize her nightmare was just beginning. Claire Crawford wasn't someone to let others scheme against her without retaliation. "Willow Green, do you resent her for hitting you?" Claire asked. Willow Green didn't dare speak the truth, quickly shaking her head. "I wouldn't dare resent the second young lady." Claire chuckled, lightly tapping Willow Green's head. "I'll give you a chance for revenge. Go find Father in Jadestone, tell him something happened to Prince Lance, and he's in Vincent Crawford's courtyard." Chapter 36, Performing together. Willow Green claimed she wouldn't dare, but her actions were swift. For instance, when Claire Crawford instructed her to find the Earl of Crawford in Jadestone, Willow Green moved so quickly that Claire laughed. "Oh dear, is this little beauty getting angry? Looks like someone's about to have bad luck." Eric Stewart, who had been watching from the sidelines, had a table full of snacks from the Duke's residence, all of Claire's favorites. His eager expression annoyed Claire, but she forgave him for the pastries. After all, to a foodie, nothing is too serious. "What's up? Does the Duke want to join me in watching the show later?" Claire asked while eating a pastry. She had intended to take a good nap, but Prince Lance and Vincent Crawford disrupted her plans. She couldn't let this grudge go unavenged. Claire packed the pastries, and Eric Stewart followed her out of the Peach Blossom Pavilion. Willow Green quickly returned, only to find Eric and Claire together. She was truly puzzled by the situation. Did these people know how to walk through walls? How did Prince Lance get into her lady's room, and now the Duke too? Is everything settled? Claire asked. Willow Green nodded. Young Master Jade has already rushed off, and the Earl has left too. Claire nodded, glanced at Eric Stewart, and said, "Let's go, Your Highness, let's win over Father." Claire Crawford's strategy was far more sophisticated than Eric Stewart's. Normally, such flattery would seem childish to Lord Crawford. However, Claire arranged for Prince Lance to stay in Vincent Crawford's courtyard, which was exactly what Lord Crawford desired. Ultimately, Lord Crawford hoped Vincent would marry Prince Lance, while Claire entangled with the King of Qin. This way, Lord Crawford would have connections with two princes. Whether the King of Qin or Prince Lance ascended to the throne, Lord Crawford could secure his position as the Emperor's father-in-law. Claire was well aware of Lord Crawford's intentions, so she orchestrated this scheme. No matter how Vincent explained, it was unlikely anyone would believe her. When Claire arrived, Jadestone was arguing with Vincent Crawford, his expression fierce and his sword almost piercing the unconscious Prince Lance. "You can't kill Prince Lance, Jadestone, are you mad?" Vincent was utterly distressed. She had invited Prince Lance in hopes of being with Jadestone, but now he didn't trust her and was quarreling, leaving Vincent overwhelmed. She had never needed to explain herself to Jade Stone and was extremely proud. Seeing him causing a scene in her courtyard, she naturally wouldn't back down. Why? Are you heartbroken? Father wants you to marry Prince Lance, is that what you want too? Why did you invite him? Why let him stay drunk in your courtyard? Once rumors spread, Vincent would be tied to Prince Lance for life. How could Jade Stone not be furious? He knew nothing, and all he could do was wait. But what came of it? Waiting for Vincent to keep Prince Lance in her courtyard drove Jade Stone mad with frustration. Lord Crawford hurried over, seeing Jade Stone causing a commotion. He couldn't let him ruin things. Jade, what are you making a fuss about? Lord Crawford's timely appearance stopped Jade Stone's reckless actions. Even though you're favored by the Emperor and hold a minor position in the Imperial Guard, remember your status. Prince Lance isn't someone you can discuss. Who your sister marries isn't up to you. His words were clear, but Jade Stone had never been obedient. Hearing this, he disregarded everything. Father, you know I've always liked. Slap. Lord Crawford interrupted with a slap. Watch your words. I raised you, even crows repay kindness. You should do something for our family, don't be ungrateful. At this moment, Jade Stone had one thought: Vincent must not marry Prince Lance. He knew Lord Crawford would use any means for his benefit. Thus, he was determined to make Lord Crawford abandon the idea of marrying Vincent to Prince Lance. Father, Vincent can't marry Prince Lance. Whatever you want, I can help you achieve. Lord Crawford paid no heed to Jade Stone's words. No matter how high Jade Stone climbed, Lord Crawford would never trust him, as he wasn't his biological son. You're overthinking. I can decide for my daughter, Lord Crawford replied. Vincent quickly interjected, Jade, how can you speak to father like that? Apologize to him. Vincent knew if Jade Stone opposed Lord Crawford, the outcome wouldn't be good for him. She couldn't watch her father grow more displeased with Jade Stone, so she tried to stop the argument. Jade couldn't believe Vincent was siding against him. At that moment, Claire Crawford and Eric Stewart leisurely entered. Oh my, what a lively scene, Eric remarked, acting as if the manor was his own, nodding at Lord Crawford, who said nothing in return. But Vincent, seeing Claire, immediately understood. She realized why Jade Stone and her father had suddenly appeared. It was all Claire's doing. Lord Crawford ignored Jade Stone's words. No matter how high Jade Stone rose, Lord Crawford would never trust him, as he wasn't his biological son. You're overthinking. I can decide for my daughter, Lord Crawford replied. Vincent quickly interjected, Jade, how can you speak to father like that? Apologize to him. Vincent knew opposing Lord Crawford wouldn't end well for Jade Stone. She couldn't watch her father grow more displeased with Jade Stone, so she tried to stop the argument. Jade couldn't believe Vincent was siding against him. At that moment, Claire Crawford and Eric Stewart leisurely entered. Oh my, what a lively scene, Eric remarked, as if the manor were his own, nodding at Lord Crawford, who said nothing in return. But Vincent, seeing Claire, immediately understood. She realized why Jade Stone and her father had suddenly appeared. It was all Claire's doing. Father, Jade is only worried about our second sister. Please don't be angry. It's really inappropriate for Prince Lance to be in her courtyard. How could she disregard her reputation by keeping him there? Claire Crawford said. Vincent Crawford, though frustrated, could only swallow her anger. She couldn't reveal her plan to frame Claire Crawford in Prince Lance, which had backfired when Claire knocked him out cold. If she spoke the truth, Lord Crawford would be disappointed in her, and she'd lose her status in the household. She couldn't afford to lose Lord Crawford's favor, so she suppressed her anger. Your second sister and Prince Lance are just having a chat under the moon. Don't be upset, Lord Crawford said politely, glancing at Eric Stewart. Eric, being shrewd, understood the situation perfectly. Lord Crawford was clearly speaking for Jade Stone to hear. Eric Stewart pitted Jade Stone, but if he favored Vincent Crawford, he could only blame his own bad luck. Lord Crawford is right. Some marriages can't be forced. Such matters are decided by parents, Eric Stewart added, making Jade Stone's expression even more unpleasant. Vincent Crawford held her anger in check, not daring to defy Lord Crawford. In front of him, she was as meek as a lamb, unwilling to lose his favor and everything that came with it. "Father, Prince Lance is drunk, likely pining for our third sister. It's really inconvenient for him to be in my courtyard. You should have someone escort him to the guest house," she suggested. Eventually, Lord Crawford arranged for Prince Lance to be moved to the guest house and then departed. Jade Stone was seething with anger. Without Lord Crawford's presence to restrain him, his years in the military had forged a defiant character, and he had no qualms about confronting Claire Crawford and Eric Stewart. He was truly ruthless. "Vincent, I will take you away from the Marquis's residence. Follow me, the world is vast, and I can still take care of you." Jade Stone truly wastes his handsome face, though his appearance is unmatched, his mind is not as sharp as others. At this moment, he grabs Vincent Crawford's hand, not even wary of Claire Crawford and Eric Stewart nearby. To Jade Stone, Claire Crawford and Eric Stewart are nothing, he just wants to quickly take Vincent Crawford away. As long as they get married, the Marquis Crawford would have no choice. Jade Stone thinks simply, not realizing that Vincent Crawford doesn't want a life of wandering. She does like Jade Stone and indeed wants to marry him, but not to such an extent. Moreover, with Claire Crawford and Eric Stewart watching the commotion, she cannot lose to Claire Crawford. "Jade Stone, that's enough. You only know how to take me away. Let's not discuss this now, we'll talk later." Vincent Crawford doesn't want to discuss these matters in front of Claire Crawford and turns to go back to her room. But Jade Stone, being stubborn, refuses to leave just like that. He is not only anxious but also uneasy, fearing that the Marquis Crawford might secretly sabotage them. "So, you won't come with me?" Jade Stone feels somewhat hurt. At this point, Claire Crawford speaks up, "Jade, why rush? Our second sister is just shy and surely has her own plans. You must consider her position too. In the Marquis's residence, she is a noble daughter. Leaving with you, she would lose her father's favor and be trampled by others. Don't act impulsively." Claire Crawford's words resonate with Jade Stone, and he understands why Vincent Crawford hesitates to leave. After much thought, he finally departs. Vincent Crawford glares at Claire Crawford, knowing she lost this time, but the days are long, and she won't always lose. Eric Stewart accompanies Jade Stone, offering some comfort along the way, as men comforting men have their own way. The Crown Prince has always been friendly with Prince Lance. "I've always been curious why you suddenly turned against Prince Lance and started currying favor with my father." Jade Stone isn't stupid. He knows Eric Stewart is trying to win over Marquis Crawford because of Claire Crawford. In Jade Stone's eyes, while Claire Crawford is worthy of the title of a beauty, to have two princes competing for her so openly is quite a feat. Of course, it's for a peerless beauty that I seek. Eric Stewart glances at Jade Stone, casually putting his arm around him, unintentionally pulling Jade Stone's shirt aside, revealing a blue tattoo on his shoulder. Eric Stewart smiles, confirming his suspicions. It seems Jade Stone is indeed a descendant of the Stone family, which was exterminated years ago. Marquis Crawford was involved in the annihilation of the Stone family and adopted Jade Stone to appease the Emperor, but what kind of person is Marquis Crawford? He could raise Jade Stone but never trust him. This is why Jade Stone, despite living in the Marquis's residence for so many years, is constantly guarded against by Marquis Crawford. Surely, the Marquis never expected his noble daughter, Vincent Crawford, to have feelings for Jade Stone. "I see that Prince Eric doesn't seem like someone who indulges in wine and women," Jade Stone remarked. Having spent years in the military, he knew what kind of person someone with a military background was. Eric Stewart had joined the military at 14 and returned to court after 10 years, suddenly changing his demeanor to become a notorious prince, closely associating with Prince Lance. Yet, Jade Stone didn't believe it. He always felt Eric Stewart was hiding something. "Then you must have misunderstood. However, I can't bear to see a pair of lovers separated like this. How about I give you a suggestion? If the one you love also loves you, then your marriage is bound to succeed. Care to wager on it?" Jade Stone was confident in Vincent Crawford's genuine feelings for him and immediately agreed. "Why wouldn't I wager? Please share your brilliant idea, Your Highness, Jade Stone asked, prompting Eric Stuart to speak. Currently, Duke Crawford is eager to arrange a marriage between Prince Lance and Vincent Crawford. Do you think if their marriage succeeds, Vincent Crawford would take a risk and act recklessly? In truth, Eric Stuart was encouraging Jade Stone and Vincent Crawford to run away. After all, getting Duke Crawford to agree to their marriage seemed impossible, so they had to find another way. The issue now was whether Vincent Crawford agreed, which was crucial for their success. Therefore, Jade Stone remained confident, believing Vincent Crawford absolutely did not want to marry Prince Lance. Thinking this way, he also felt sorry for Prince Lance. Neither Vincent Crawford nor Claire Crawford wanted to marry him, indicating just how much of a failure he was. Eric Stuart left, and the next day, when Prince Lance woke up, his face bore the brunt of the previous night's events. Claire Crawford hadn't spared him, focusing her blows mostly on his face, so much so that the next day, Prince Lance left without even saying goodbye to Duke Crawford, sneaking away. But who would have thought that by morning, rumors had spread everywhere? People outside are saying that Prince Lance and the second young lady are deeply in love and couldn't bear to part. Willow Green relayed the rumors to Claire Crawford. These rumors weren't spread by her, so it must have been Eric Stuart who orchestrated them, binding Prince Lance to Vincent Crawford in just one morning. He's truly malicious, destroying the reputations of two people to achieve his goals, Claire Crawford commented. However, she added, but honestly, it feels quite satisfying. If I cause a commotion next, it would be justified, wouldn't it? After all, it's Prince Lance who's been unfaithful, not me. Willow Green, listening beside her, understood Claire Crawford's thoughts. She didn't want to marry Prince Lance, perhaps she wanted to marry Prince Eric instead. She truly didn't regard Prince Lance highly, feeling he wasn't sincere towards her mistress, unlike Prince Eric, who seemed to care deeply. Miss Snowfrost asked me to tell you that she wants to see me, Willow Green mentioned. Although she and Snowfrost had grown up together, she felt she should inform her mistress before meeting her. Claire Crawford wasn't concerned and nodded, saying, then go ahead. Who knows, maybe she'll beg you for help. Today, Claire Crawford wanted to visit the store, so after tidying up, she went out on her own, leaving Willow Green to meet Snowfrost. Upon arriving at the tea shop, coincidentally, she discovered Jade Stone and Vincent Crawford having a private meeting in the next room. It was uncertain whether fate was helping her or playing tricks on her. Things have escalated to the point where everyone knows, and soon, he will surely ask His Majesty to annul the engagement between Claire Crawford and Prince Lance, so you can take Claire's place. What do you really think? Do you truly want to marry Prince Lance? Jade Stone's voice was filled with concern, clearly unable to hold back any longer. However, Vincent Crawford was still hesitant. Jade, I will plead with my father. You know my feelings for you. I don't want to marry Prince Lance, but I can't just walk away like that. He is my father, and I have my mother too. My mother will certainly help me. Let me ask them one more time, and if they refuse, I will have no choice but to threaten with my life. Vincent Crawford's words reassured Jade Stone significantly, making him trust Vincent. Yet, he felt that Lord Crawford would be difficult to deal with and unlikely to agree easily. Claire Crawford, overhearing from nearby, was genuinely puzzled by Vincent Crawford. She truly didn't want to marry Prince Lance and indeed had feelings for Jade Stone, but she also had no plans to marry Jade Stone. Perhaps she hoped Jade Stone would achieve something before discussing marriage, as if wanting to keep him waiting. Otherwise, given Jade Stone's age, he should have been settling down and starting a family by now. Chapter 38, Every daughter is a tool. I've already discussed with Jade Stone. As long as he and Vincent Crawford elope, their matter will definitely succeed. Eric Stuart appeared out of nowhere, always managing to be precisely where Claire Crawford was. Claire felt something was off until she saw a familiar face, someone who had been following her for days. It was then she realized how Eric Stuart always knew her exact location. Your man? Claire glanced at the person outside, instantly recognizing him as a specially trained shadow, undoubtedly one of Eric Stuart's men. What was his intention in having someone follow her? This wasn't a good habit, she needed to help him change it. Eric Stuart, you dare to have someone follow me? As soon as Claire spoke, Eric understood what she would do and quickly grabbed her hand, slipping a bracelet onto her wrist. Cheer up, beautiful. Give me a smile? Claire looked at the bracelet on her hand. It was indeed a fine piece, green and quite nice. Fine, she'd forgive him for the bracelet's sake. Withdraw your men. I don't like being followed. Claire disliked being monitored every second. It was an unpleasant feeling. Eric hurriedly nodded, repeatedly assuring, all right, whatever makes you happy, my dear. Claire found it hard to trust him. He was dishonest and always scheming. Who knew what he was plotting this time? Tell me, what are you planning? Vincent Crawford would never elope with Jade Stone. You're smart enough to see that. Claire could see the issue, and she didn't believe Eric couldn't. Vincent wasn't an ordinary person. Although he liked Jade Stone, he wouldn't run away without some capability. Then why do you think your father is so heartless towards Jade Stone? Eric asked, realizing how absurd the question was. The Duke of Crawford was heartless to everyone. Stop beating around the bush and tell me, what grudge does Jade Stone have with my father? Otherwise, why would he insist on separating Vincent and Jade, not allowing them to be together? The Duke clearly had reservations about Jade Stone, otherwise, he wouldn't be so wary. Logically, Emily Crawford marrying Prince Lance was feasible, as every daughter was just a tool in the Duke's eyes. Yet, he was determined to separate Jade and Vincent, so there must be something more. You say this pretty girl is too clever. It's truly a blow to me. Eric Stewart spoke while peeling pine nuts for Claire Crawford. Though his words were sharp, he eventually revealed the background of Jade Stone to her. The descendants of the Stone family, to put it bluntly, were secret pawns placed by the Emperor in the Crawford household because the Emperor did not trust Lord Crawford. As an emperor, being overly suspicious is a major flaw. It cannot last long. Claire Crawford understood the principles of rulership well. How could an emperor maintain his dynasty if he didn't trust those under him? Therefore, it was not surprising that the emperor was plotted against and Lord Crawford was disloyal. So, you hope Jade Stone learns about his origin soon, and you want to deal with my father? Claire Crawford asked, and Eric Stewart was indeed very tense. He truly intended to confront Lord Crawford. Previously, he wanted to woo the beauty, but if he opposed Lord Crawford, how would Claire Crawford view him? Lord Crawford was, after all, her father. Would they still share smiles as they did today when swords were drawn? What are you thinking? Claire Crawford saw Eric Stewart lost in thought and asked, wondering why he was distracted. Eric Stewart smiled but didn't voice the thoughts in his heart. Jade Stone's quest to know his origins needs careful planning, but marrying the little beauty is the real priority. Eric Stewart could still joke with this face, which Claire Crawford found a bit odd. Yet, she couldn't shake off her feelings of guilt. Who wants to marry you? Keep dreaming. Claire Crawford shot Eric Stewart a sidelong glance. This time Eric Stewart couldn't hold back. You must know if your engagement to Prince Lance is annulled, the Emperor will surely arrange another marriage for you. Do you wish to marry someone else? If you miss the chance with me, you'll have no other support. Claire Crawford frowned. Although Eric Stewart spoke the truth, she only wanted to help him achieve everything he desired. Marrying him, however, was not something she wished to repeat from her past life. She didn't want to walk the same path or face the same ending. Eric Stewart, we agreed on a partnership. I will do my utmost to help you achieve everything you want, and that's it. Claire Crawford spoke earnestly, giving her all. But Eric Stewart heard it differently. From the beginning, Claire Crawford attracted him. She was unlike anyone else. Her way of handling things was unique. Such a person, from being someone he wanted to use to someone he wanted to marry. Now, Eric Stewart envisioned a future together with Claire Crawford. She was the woman he wanted to marry, the one he had chosen. But what if she didn't want to marry him? Oh dear, the little beauty doesn't like me. I'm heartbroken. Eric Stewart seemed to take it lightly, but he believed Claire Crawford would think it over. After all, an imperial marriage decree only benefited the royal family, not her. That day, when Claire Crawford returned to the mansion from the tea house, she saw Willow Green sitting nearby, looking secretly sad. This girl usually sneaked snacks when Claire wasn't around, so why was she quietly wiping tears now? Weren't you visiting Snowfrost? Is she not doing well? Claire Crawford didn't need to ask to know it was about Snowfrost. Willow Green appeared sharp-tongued but was soft-hearted. "Miss, I just feel upset. Snowfrost, she deserves it." Willow Green said she deserved it, but she couldn't stop crying. Prince Lance's household is not a good place. She chose this path, so she can't blame others. I can't control her, but I must look after you. Willow Green nodded while wiping away her tears. Snowfrost did not fare well at Prince Lance's residence. Prince Lance quickly grew tired of her. As a result, she became one of the concubines in Prince Lance's household, living a life worse than a favored maid. Willow Green didn't tell Claire Crawford that Snowfrost was begging Claire to rescue her. Willow Green had no intention of passing on this message, as she didn't believe Claire should save her. But not long after, Snowfrost came personally. Upon seeing Claire Crawford, she immediately fell to her knees. "Miss, please save me, Snowfrost cried desperately, while Willow Green hurriedly tried to pull her up. "Snowfrost, how dare you ask the miss to save you? Don't you know what you've done? How can you have the face to plead with her?" Willow Green questioned Snowfrost on the spot, angered by her pleas to Claire Crawford. "Miss, have mercy on me, look, I really can't go on living like this," Snowfrost said, rolling up her sleeves to reveal scars, which were glaring and frightening. "Miss, you cannot marry into Prince Lance's household. When Prince Lance gets drunk, he hits people. After I fell out of favor, he would beat me when drunk. Marrying into Prince Lance's household is like jumping into a pit of fire." Claire Crawford was unaware of Prince Lance's violent tendencies. She had never imagined he could hit others, especially since she had once hit him herself. "Snowfrost, now that you're in Prince Lance's household, how do you expect me to get you out?" Claire Crawford felt helpless about Snowfrost's plea to escape Prince Lance's residence. Chapter 39, Jade Stone leaves the Marquis residence unable to persuade Claire Crawford. Snowfrost naturally sought someone else, turning to Emily Crawford. She had interacted with Emily Crawford before, and now, with no other options, she could only seek her help. "Snowfrost, do you want me to help you get out?" Emily Crawford appeared particularly sincere now, knowing her father had no intention of marrying her to Prince Lance and had given up on Claire Crawford, choosing Vincent Crawford instead of her. Emily Crawford had her own plans. "No, I know you don't have that ability, but I want 10,000 silver notes. If you give them to me, I'll help you get close to Prince Lance." Snowfrost understood Emily Crawford's desires, so she was determined to earn money, believing that with money, she could leave. "Oh? What can you do as a concubine?" Emily Crawford doubted Snowfrost. If she truly had the capability, she wouldn't be in such a dire situation. "You may look down on me, but you can't deny my skills. I managed to enter Prince Lance's household, yet you haven't." Emily Crawford was left speechless and could only ask further, "So, what is your plan?" Snowfrost whispered a few words to Emily Crawford before leaving. After Snowfrost left, someone reported to Claire Crawford, "She did meet with Emily Crawford. Some people are beyond saving." Whatever Emily Crawford intended, at least it didn't conflict with her for now. "Willow Green, let's go visit our elder sister," Claire Crawford said before heading to see Emily Crawford. At that moment, Emily Crawford was contemplating whether to collaborate with Snowfrost when Claire Crawford arrived. "Oh my, who do we have here? Isn't it my ever-busy younger sister? What brings you here today?" Emily Crawford looked at Claire Crawford, whom she once sought to eliminate by any means. But now, Emily Crawford couldn't have imagined that Vincent Crawford's desire to marry Jadestone would become her greatest rival. If her father truly married Vincent Crawford to Prince Lance, what would become of her? "I came to visit my elder sister. This is not just any treat, it's a delicacy from Tuff and Chew that Prince Eric Stuart sent over. I brought some for you," Claire Crawford mentioned, emphasizing her connection with Prince Eric Stuart, making it clear that Prince Lance was not on her side. Emily Crawford understood the implication and asked, "Are you trying to be friendly with me?" Claire took Emily's hand and said, "Elder sister, we had misunderstandings before, but now that you aren't taking anything from me, we can always be good sisters. Our second sister, being the legitimate daughter, naturally isn't on our side." Emily didn't reject Claire's attempt at friendliness because she was more focused on dealing with Vincent Crawford and didn't want to make an enemy of Claire. "Since you say so, it was my fault before. Please don't hold it against me," Emily replied. It seemed like Emily and Claire had formed an alliance, but Claire's real goal was to distance herself from Prince Lance. Whether Vincent married Prince Lance or Emily ended up with him didn't matter to her. She didn't care at all. Leaving Emily's courtyard, Claire unexpectedly encountered Jade Stone drinking alone behind a rockery. Despite living in the Marquis's residence, Jade Stone had no real affection for the people there. Vincent treated Jade Stone as an outsider, and Jade Stone was merely a passerby in the residence. Today, Jade Stone seemed to be in a bad mood. "What's so interesting about drinking alone?" Claire approached slowly. She had been investigating the Stone family from years ago and felt it was time to reveal Jade Stone's true background. This large Marquis residence was not a place to stay alone. Leaving would allow him the freedom to soar, as staying was not beneficial. "What are you looking at? I don't mean to mock you. What I mean is that in this Marquis residence, you are the most genuine." Claire Crawford couldn't help but admit that Jade Stone was the most sincere person. For instance, everyone carried their own agendas. The First Lady and Margaret Seymour were both adept at scheming, and even Vincent Crawford and Emily Crawford were the same. Vincent was the type who could exploit anyone. To speak of sincerity, only Jade Stone was truly genuine. Jade Stone was honest with Vincent Crawford, genuinely wanted to marry him, and was sincere to everyone in the residence. He never pretended or feigned good relations with anyone. It was precisely this authenticity that led to Jade Stone being isolated by everyone in the Marquis residence. "You really are different from before." Jade Stone took a sip of strong wine, once again bringing up the idea of eloping with Vincent Crawford. Vincent's intentions were clear: if he didn't act, Vincent Crawford might truly become Prince Lance's consort. What Vincent wanted, no one could refuse. However, Vincent Crawford made it clear that he wouldn't elope with Jade Stone, stating that without a title or rank, he was merely a minor official favored by the Emperor. She would marry Jade Stone only after he achieved fame and success. Jade Stone said nothing, leaving alone to the rockery, the place where he often met Vincent Crawford in the past. Claire Crawford noticed the air of farewell around Jade Stone, the desire to leave after disappointment, at the place that once held the most beauty. "It's just a woman. It's your own poor judgment, not anyone else's fault. In life, you must look forward." Claire Crawford thought that in the Marquis residence, only Jade Stone was worth befriending. "Well said. For that, I must toast you." With that, Jade Stone and Claire Crawford drank on the rockery for a while. Unexpectedly, under the beautiful moonlight, assassins appeared in the vast Marquis residence. The black-clad figures, fierce and menacing, targeted Jade Stone, but ultimately surrounded Claire Crawford as well. "Drinking with you even puts me in danger. You're truly a dangerous person. Last time I saved you, you didn't even thank me, and now I'm helping you again. Don't you owe me a big favor?" Claire Crawford took another sip from the wine jug beside her. Jade Stone knew that being here today was dangerous and escape might be difficult, but with Claire Crawford, he was safe. "Of course, I owe you more. When there's a chance, I'll definitely repay you," Jade Stone said, preparing to fight, gripping his sword, ready to confront the black-clad figures. Claire Crawford shook her head and said, "Why make it so complicated?" Who was Claire Crawford? The third young lady of the Marquis residence, the most obedient daughter in Vincent's hands. Just her status was enough for Claire Crawford to signal the guards of the residence, who immediately rushed in. The guards and the assassins were all Vincent's people, making today's assassination attempt a complete failure. "Let's go. There's no one left in this vast Marquis residence that I care for. I will repay this favor, Claire Crawford. I will remember you," Jade Stone said as he leaped out of the residence, and Claire Crawford achieved her goal. Jade Stone owed her a favor, and once he left the Marquis residence, wherever he went, just his identity alone would ensure the Emperor used him to control Vincent. He was not a fish in a pond, it was Vincent Crawford who lacked foresight. If she had eloped with him, they could have soared high in the future. Unfortunately, Vincent Crawford's vision was too short-sighted, ultimately harming herself, likely regretting it too late in the future. However, what worried Claire Crawford the most now was Prince Lance. Prince Lance might see through Vincent's schemes and wouldn't easily let her go. How could she break off the engagement? This was what troubled Claire Crawford, and as she returned to Peach Blossom Pavilion, she saw Eric Stewart eating her snacks. Chapter 40, You Are Not Him. Claire Crawford's anger surged. She had been using both wit and courage against Jade Stone, even facing danger and assassins, yet Eric Stewart could sit here leisurely enjoying breakfast. How bold! I encountered assassins over there, and I refuse to believe that with your hearing, you didn't notice. Yet here you are, eating my breakfast? Claire Crawford said, launching a hidden weapon. Eric Stewart caught it effortlessly and placed the breakfast box he brought on the table. Here, for you. The previous ones were left all day and weren't fresh, so I helped you finish them, Eric Stewart said, opening the box, releasing an enticing aroma of shrimp dumplings. Claire Crawford and Jade Stone had drunk quite a bit and were already hungry, so she let Eric Stewart off the hook. Eat slowly. Jade Stone's wine isn't anything special. You smell entirely of alcohol. As a young lady, you should drink less cold wine, it's not good for your health. What if you can't have children in the future? What would I do then? Eric Stewart barely finished before Claire Crawford kicked him, but he was prepared. Claire Crawford felt confused. Eric Stewart's face was the same, but why was his personality so similar too? That mouth, so cheeky. Wasn't he more composed before? Was it all an act? I'm about to set out for battle, Eric Stewart said, placing another shrimp dumpling in front of Claire Crawford. Her cheeks puffed up as she ate, and upon hearing the news of his departure, she mumbled, asking why he had to go. Her appearance, like a hamster with a full mouth, was irresistibly adorable to Eric Stewart. Finish eating first. You want to ask why I'm going to battle, right? Eric Stewart guessed Claire Crawford's thoughts. Seeing her nod, he stuffed another dumpling in her mouth. The Northwest is in turmoil again, and the Emperor has ordered me to suppress it. Eric Stewart had been idle for years. What was the Emperor thinking? There were plenty of generals in the capital, yet he insisted on sending Eric to the Northwest? Eric Stewart accurately guessed Claire Crawford's thoughts again and added, because he doesn't care about me. If I win, it's fine, the royal family gains face. If I die, it's no loss to him. Claire Crawford silently cursed the Emperor, wondering what his calculations were. But then she thought, it didn't make sense. Royal family's face? The Emperor will give you the military seal? Claire Crawford finally asked the crucial question. Eric Stewart replied, that's why Prince Lance is going with me. He's the chief commander, and I'm just putting in the effort. Over the years, I've lived comfortably beside him. He wouldn't make things difficult for me, but because of you, this journey won't be easy. Eric Stewart spoke pitifully, portraying himself as someone abandoned and used by the Emperor, which made Claire Crawford feel a bit sorry for him. Hey, look, I'm so pitiful. Aren't you going to comfort me? Eric Stewart looked at Claire Crawford with feigned misery, even hinting at wanting a hug. Embracing the beauty in his arms, he felt immense joy. Claire Crawford pondered for a while, sensing something was off. I suddenly realized you're not as naive as you seem. The Emperor wants you to be a scapegoat for Prince Lance, and you're just going along with it? Do you intend to seize the military seal from Prince Lance? Eric Stewart's eyes twinkled with interest. Claire Crawford really could guess everything. His intentions were almost entirely predicted by her. What did Prince Lance understand? The Emperor supported Prince Lance, hoping he would achieve military success, clearly wanting him to ascend to that position. However, the Emperor was far away atop a high mountain. Prince Lance had never led troops into battle. What could he do in the Northwest? Therefore, it would ultimately be Eric Stewart who made the decisions. Plotting against Prince Lance would be as easy as turning a hand. You fraud, how could Prince Lance be a match for you? In the Northwest, isn't it you who will call the shots? Claire Crawford said, attempting to hit Eric Stewart. Unfortunately, Eric Stewart wasn't Prince Lance and couldn't be easily struck. The two of them were in a lively dispute when someone sent by Lord Crawford to find Claire Crawford saw Eric Stuart and left. This allowed Claire Crawford to escape trouble. After all, Claire had saved Jade Stone, and although Lord Crawford was angry, he let it go out of respect for Eric Stuart. I must go now. Although Prince Lance can no longer trouble you, you must be cautious of royal consort Florence. Remember me often, Eric Stuart said as he came to bid farewell, bringing 2 bottles of premium osmanthus wine. However, Claire had already been drinking and couldn't drink more. Eric thought so, but Claire didn't agree. Seeing the osmanthus wine, how could she not drink? Why? Aren't you drinking? Claire's straightforward nature made Eric hesitate. Thus, they ended up sharing another bottle of wine. Claire became slightly tipsy, but Eric remained sober. Coming to say goodbye before heading to war, I didn't expect you to be such a drinker, Eric said helplessly. But after drinking, Claire wasn't her usual self. You're the one who's drunk, Claire retorted. Alright, you still know who I am. Yes, you're not drunk. Come here, Eric tried to take advantage of the moment, only to be pushed away by Claire. She retreated to her room, and Eric followed to ensure she wouldn't fall in her inebriated state. Claire sat on the bed, her slightly intoxicated eyes looking at Eric. Lance Stuart. It wasn't the first time Eric heard this name, but hearing it from Claire, with her looking at him so affectionately, made him uncomfortable. Did she mistake him for someone else? Feeling a bit annoyed, Eric pinched Claire's face, prompting an angry glare from her. But after a moment, Claire began to cry. Eric feared nothing but Claire's tears. Why are you crying? You mistook me for someone else, and I didn't blame you, so why cry? Eric felt he shouldn't argue with a drunk person, but he was still unhappy. Seeing you makes me really happy, Claire said, but Eric found it hard to believe. Who am I? Eric asked, removing Claire's shoes and socks, trying to get her to lie down, but she refused, sitting stubbornly on the bed. You're not Lance Stuart, you're Eric Stuart, Claire said, clearly aware of who was in front of her. Eric snorted, and who was Eric Stuart? A cunning old fox, but Lance Stuart was someone who would die to protect me. I've lost the only man who loved me in this world, Claire cried, perhaps finally venting her pent-up grievances through drunken tears. Eric stayed by Claire's side as she mumbled incoherently in her drunken state, though he understood none of it. Eventually, Eric placed the royal command seal in Claire's hand as she slept soundly. Watching her sleep peacefully, Eric realized that Claire was an exceptionally remarkable woman, and no one could be more captivating than her. At that moment, Eric knew he couldn't escape his feelings. The Crawford girl, I'm leaving. When I return, the capital's landscape may have changed. You should make your choice. I wonder if we'll ever sit here drinking osmanthus wine again, Eric said, kissing Claire's forehead as she slept. Regardless of their future relationship, at that moment, they were the most harmonious partners, the ones who trusted each other, and that was enough. #### Chapter 41, presenting the 100 poison pill at the city gate. Willow Green attended to Claire Crawford as she woke up and washed her face, muttering. The Marquis asked the second lady to see off Prince Lance. Miss, do you really not like Prince Lance? Willow Green was merely trying to gauge Claire Crawford's feelings, as she always thought Claire Crawford was destined to be Prince Lance's future consort. If her lady liked Prince Lance, the Marquis's actions would indeed be too much. Claire Crawford recalled Eric Stuart mentioning his departure for battle yesterday. Today, both Prince Lance and Eric Stuart were setting out. How could I forget this? Hurry, prepare the carriage for me. Claire Crawford had previously crafted 100 poison pill, intending to give it to Eric Stuart as a token for a successful campaign. But, she needed to be on time. Willow Green assumed Claire wanted to see off Prince Lance and quickly instructed others to ready the carriage. Claire hurried out, heading straight to the city gate. This time, the Emperor did not come to bid farewell, but Princess Amelia did. Currently overseeing the Imperial Guard, Princess Amelia was the Emperor's most trusted. It seemed she came to see off Prince Lance, as everyone speculated he would return with great merit and be made crown prince. Prince Eric Stuart stood nearby, almost blending into the background. Marquis Crawford also brought his daughter, Vincent Crawford, to the farewell. Jade Stone, accompanying Princess Amelia, noticed Vincent Crawford. Although Vincent did not favor Prince Lance, she dared not oppose Marquis Crawford's wishes, feeling deeply saddened as she looked at Jade Stone. "Your Highness Prince Lance, I have come specifically to see you off. I wish you a triumphant return." Marquis Crawford's intentions were clear, sending Vincent to bid farewell. Though Prince Lance was reluctant, he couldn't refuse the Marquis's gesture, as he still needed Marquis Crawford's support. "Thank you, Marquis Crawford, and thank you, Miss Crawford." Prince Lance, in truth, cared about appearances. If he became Crown Prince, Claire Crawford would naturally be unable to escape him. Marquis Crawford wanted Vincent to be Prince Lance's consort, but it was the Emperor's decision. Yet, he desired Claire Crawford, perhaps even both. Unexpectedly, as Prince Lance and Marquis Crawford conversed happily, and Vincent Crawford and Prince Lance exchanged smiles, Claire Crawford arrived. Marquis Crawford watched his daughter step down from the carriage, confidently approaching Prince Lance, then seeking out Prince Eric. A smile appeared on Marquis Crawford's lips. Naturally, he wasn't angry. He intended for Claire to establish some connection with Prince Eric. Now, even though Prince Lance did not reject Vincent, Claire's closeness with Prince Eric gave him leverage before the Emperor. "Your Highness Prince Eric, I have come to see you off on your campaign," Claire declared clearly. Who else was here to see off Prince Eric? Yet Claire did it, and openly before everyone. "Thank you," Prince Eric grinned widely. As soon as he smiled, Claire pulled Eric Stuart aside to a quiet spot. Prince Lance stood by, his face turning green with envy. Though Vincent came to see him off, Claire was still his intended consort in name. Now, Claire's closeness with Prince Eric was a blow to his pride. In a quiet place, Eric Stuart was pleasantly surprised to see Claire up and about. "Crawford girl, you've sobered up? After drinking so much yesterday, you still got up to see me off today. Truly touching." Claire gave Eric a sidelong glance, saying, "Then cry, and I'll watch." Eric was just speaking metaphorically, crying now would be embarrassing. "I knew you were just all talk." Claire, accustomed to his ways, took a pill from her pocket and said, "Open your mouth." Eric Stuart instinctively opened his mouth, resulting in a pill being tossed in. After swallowing it, he asked, "What was that?" It was too late. He wondered if he trusted Claire Crawford too much. But having swallowed it, could he really retrieve it from his throat? Asking now, isn't it a bit late? "It's a heart-penetrating poison, regretting it is too late," Claire Crawford remarked, though Eric Stuart wasn't concerned. Surely, Claire Crawford wouldn't harm him now, right? "I must go, the signal has been given," Prince Lance said, unable to bear the situation any longer and eager to leave immediately to avoid further embarrassment. Claire Crawford glanced at Prince Lance before telling Eric Stuart, "That was the 100 poisons pill. Though I haven't tried it myself, it's guaranteed to neutralize all poisons. The Northwest is full of poisonous plants, I wish you all the best." Eric Stuart grinned, feeling the 100 poisons pill was Claire Crawford's way of showing concern for him. If she was worried, she should just say so directly. Why be so reserved? "I'll return to marry you," Eric Stuart declared before departing, leaving Claire Crawford frowning and shaking her head. Who wanted to marry him anyway? She was helping him, not marrying him. After delivering the items, Claire Crawford also left. Now that the prince had gone and Prince Lance had departed, the capital could finally enjoy some peace. People said the Northwest was unstable, but she believed it was due to someone scheming, like the cunning Eric Stuart. He certainly wouldn't make things easy for Prince Lance, who knew Prince Lance might fall into Eric Stuart's trap. Claire Crawford returned to the Peach Blossom Pavilion and found the prince's command token left for her by Eric Stuart beside her pillow. It was the token she had returned to him before. Thanks to this token, she had been able to collaborate with Eric Stuart, but now he left it with her again. This command token was crucial. In times of crisis, it could mobilize all the forces of the prince's estate. "Miss, someone from the palace has arrived," Willow Green rushed in. "It's someone from Royal Consort Florence's side, asking you to enter the palace." Royal Consort Florence? Just as Prince Lance set out, Royal Consort Florence summoned her to the palace. What could it mean? Let's go find father, Claire Crawford decided. She wasn't naive, royal consort Florence's summons likely didn't bode well. So, knowing there was danger, would you still venture into it alone? If she had to go, she needed support. Thus, Claire Crawford went to see Lord Crawford. Father, please save me, she feigned fear, seeing Lord Crawford as a savior. In Lord Crawford's eyes, Claire Crawford was always obedient. Except for the incident where she accidentally saved Jade Stone, which he believed was a fluke, not intentional. For instance, when asked to marry Prince Lance, Claire Crawford agreed and cooperated fully. When told to contact the prince, she complied readily. Therefore, Lord Crawford wouldn't stand by and let royal consort Florence trouble her. Don't worry, I've sent word to royal consort Florence's people that you've caught a cold and it's inconvenient to enter the palace, Lord Crawford assured her. With him as a shield, no one could argue. Claire Crawford felt relieved. With Lord Crawford handling things, she was just a weak woman who knew nothing. Thank you, father. The prince said he would come to propose once he returns, Claire Crawford said, feigning innocence and telling Lord Crawford what he wanted to hear. He's sensible. This time, it's up to his fate. If he doesn't return, I'll find someone better for you, Lord Crawford replied, implying it depended on the prince's fate. The emperor clearly favored Prince Lance over the prince, but in Lord Crawford's view, Eric Stuart was not someone to be easily dismissed. Chapter 42 The royal family's embarrassment. Eric Stuart's troops slowly advanced towards the northwest, often bullied by Prince Lance along the way. However, Eric Stuart didn't mind. Prince Lance strutted on the road, believing that with the military token in hand, the soldiers would follow his orders. Unfortunately, someone who lived his entire life in the capital like him couldn't understand life on the battlefield. Upon reaching the northwest, conditions were harsh, yet Prince Lance wasn't foolish. He shared meals with Eric Stuart, not out of concern for him but out of fear that the northwestern people might harm him. After all, during his last visit to the northwest, he didn't get along with General Phoenix Quinn, and the Northwestern Army didn't like him either. Before this trip, the emperor had given him many instructions, hoping he would earn military merit to advance further. Thus, Prince Lance understood the emperor's wish for him to gain military achievements. Eat up. Prince Lance noticed that King Tan wasn't eating and dared not eat himself. The table was filled with meat and fish, a luxury in the harsh northwest where some soldiers couldn't even have buns and had to settle for thin porridge. Yet Prince Lance demanded 3 meals a day with meat and fish, which made Eric Stuart uncomfortable. Despite his advice, Prince Lance ignored him, so they had to follow his orders. Today's meal is quite delicious. Eric Stuart finished the meat and fish on the table, putting Prince Lance at ease. The northwest was harsh, with bizarre weather and constant sandstorms. Prince Lance felt miserable, as it wasn't a place for people to live, especially without beauties around. He was gloomy every day. Regarding enemy incursions, Prince Lance was too lazy to participate, leaving Eric Stuart to handle them. After all, the military achievements would be his, regardless of who fought the battles. After eating, Prince Lance felt bored. With a full stomach and warm clothes, his thoughts turned to women, and he wanted to find some entertainment in the city. However, that was just wishful thinking. The entire afternoon, Prince Lance suffered from diarrhea so severely that he questioned his existence, squatting in the latrine without any intention of leaving. Eric Stuart, in his tent, heard about it and couldn't stop laughing. No worries, call the army physician. We can't have a prince die from diarrhea in the latrine, it would be too embarrassing for the royal family. 7 Moon's mouth twitched, their prince was truly ruthless. Killing someone was one thing, but Prince Lance was now utterly exhausted. By the time 7 Moon found the army physician, Prince Lance was almost done for, dragged out by the guards, still suffering from stomach pain and needing to relieve himself. 7 Moon had to cover his nose to leave, and the army physician had never seen such a scene. The entire camp was in chaos, except for Eric Stuart, who was relaxed and carefree. The Crawford girl's medicine is truly effective. Eric Stuart gazed at the northwest moon, missing Claire Crawford even more under the rare moonlight. He wondered what she was doing and if anyone was bullying her. But considering Claire Crawford's strong personality, it was good enough if she wasn't bullying others, no one would dare bully her. Meanwhile, Claire Crawford was quite relaxed. With Prince Lance and King Tan away, she rarely had peace and took the opportunity to organize her shop, secretly selling some items to earn money, turning it into her little treasury. After all, she was managing the Marquis's household now, and with the accounts in disarray, taking a little wasn't unreasonable, right? That day, as Claire Crawford returned from checking her shop, she happened to run into Princess Amelia and Rei Qin. There was only one path, but the two seemed quite agitated, so Claire Crawford decided not to disturb them and hid nearby. "Sister-in-law," Rei Qin called out. Since General Phoenix Quin's death, although she inherited the general's household, she lacked titles and military achievements, making her seem pitiable in others' eyes. Princess Amelia had secretly helped her a lot, but it was only a temporary fix. Ultimately, whether Rei Qin could continue to glorify the Tan family in the capital depended on her abilities. "I am no longer your sister-in-law," Princess Amelia replied coldly. Since breaking off her engagement with General Phoenix Qin, she had become even more aloof. She was never a warm or talkative person, and now she was even colder. Having taken over the Imperial Guards, many tried to curry favor with her, but none could get close to Princess Amelia. "I never hoped you would be my sister-in-law before, but now, you can never become my sister-in-law." Rei Qin used to be known for her reckless behavior with spoiled young men, but now she has managed to break free from that lifestyle, showing she has some capability. Currently, she manages the entire general's residence efficiently, which can be considered her good fortune. Claire Crawford listened nearby, not particularly interested in gossip, but having no choice since she couldn't leave. Princess Amelia and General Phoenix Qin once had a marriage arrangement decreed by the emperor himself, but now? What is Rei Qin doing interfering? Claire Crawford thought that Rei Qin wasn't exactly a child anymore. After Rei Qin left, Claire Crawford stepped out, only to find Princess Amelia watching her. Feeling a bit awkward, Claire Crawford didn't want to make enemies with Princess Amelia, as she had a good impression of her. "I want to say that I didn't intentionally eavesdrop, do you believe me?" Princess Amelia, having noticed someone eavesdropping, initially thought it was someone sent by another party, but upon realizing it was Claire Crawford, decided to wait for her. "I'm very curious about what means you used to captivate both Prince Lance and my brother." "The Duke," Princess Amelia said. She knew Vincent well, but Claire Crawford was someone the Duke specifically instructed her to take good care of before he left. The Duke had never shown any special treatment to any woman, making Claire Crawford an exception. Naturally, Princess Amelia was curious about what qualities Claire Crawford possessed to enchant her brother, who was usually indifferent to women. "Just like you, Princess, with a nose and a mouth," Claire Crawford replied slowly, thinking that if the princess decided to act against her, it might be troublesome, even though she wouldn't necessarily lose. "Let's go, I will personally escort you back to ensure nothing happens to you on the way, so no one comes to me for accountability," Amelia said, seeing Claire Crawford as someone skilled in archery but not in martial arts, and it was quite late. Being a woman herself, she considered others as delicate. "Thank you, Princess Amelia," Claire Crawford replied helplessly, wanting to tell the princess that there was no need for such courtesy. Moreover, this was the capital, and there was no real danger at night. If there were, it was uncertain who would be at a disadvantage. Princess Amelia, true to her word, escorted Claire Crawford to the door and, before she entered, said, "If you truly like my brother the Duke, remember to treat him well. If not, don't toy with him." Princess Amelia, who usually spoke little, only did so because of Eric Stuart. It seemed Eric Stuart had better relations than Prince Lance, otherwise, why didn't she mention Prince Lance? Now that even Princess Amelia knew about her and the Duke, surely the Emperor was aware too. Her marriage proposal still awaited the Emperor's decision, and it was unclear what he was planning. "I will remember your Highness's warning, thank you for escorting me," Claire Crawford said without anger, while Princess Amelia smiled. Indeed, she was an interesting person, no wonder her brother the Duke liked Claire Crawford. Chapter 43, Prince Lance's escape. Returning to the Peach Blossom Pavilion, Claire Crawford received a letter from Eric Stuart sent from afar. The messenger brought a small token from Duke Eric Stuart's residence, along with a box of pastries from Jency's, and handed them to Claire Crawford. She ate the pastries but only read the letter in the evening. A day without seeing you feels like 3 years, don't forget me, little Crawford girl. Reading Eric Stewart's letter, Claire Crawford could imagine his roguish demeanor. Admittedly, Eric Stewart's face was quite handsome, but his words were always cheeky. She wondered how he was faring in the Northwest, but since he had taken her 100 poison pill, Prince Lance's life was certainly not easy. She doubted Eric Stewart would spare Prince Lance easily, likely concocting some scheme to keep him bedridden. This time, it seemed Prince Lance truly couldn't get out of bed. In the Northwest, Prince Lance was indeed bedridden for several days. When the enemy suddenly attacked, Eric Stewart was prepared, but Prince Lance was caught off guard. He had no preparations and was dragged out of bed, barely escaping to a safe place, completely exhausted. Meanwhile, Eric Stewart led his men to clean up the aftermath. He had intentionally plotted against both Prince Lance and the enemy forces. Your Highness, the enemy now believes Prince Lance is incompetent in leading troops. After this probe, they might take the next attack more seriously, and Prince Lance's leadership could lead to a disastrous defeat, Seven Moon remarked, still puzzled by his master's plans. Prince Lance would never willingly surrender everything to his master. Don't worry, Prince Lance is too pampered to stay here long. Tonight, I'll give him another strong dose, ensuring he'll leave by tomorrow, Eric Stewart assured. Seven Moon was truly baffled by his master's calculations. Logically, it shouldn't be this way. Prince Lance was sent by the Emperor and couldn't leave easily. If he didn't go, and the enemy attacked again, it would be a complete disaster. That night, Prince Lance finally managed to rest, only to be stabbed in the right shoulder in the middle of the night, forcing him to flee as his tent was set ablaze. Eric Stewart appeared at Prince Lance's most desperate moment, saving him. Prince Lance, the enemy ambushed us and injured you, Eric Stewart insisted, blaming the enemy forces. Prince Lance, terrified and shaken, realized that although he was the commander, Eric Stewart was the one truly fighting the battle. He had no desire to be involved, but now Eric Stewart was unharmed while he was injured, which was not good news. If this continued, he wouldn't just fail to earn credit, he might die here. Moreover, Prince Lance distrusted Eric Stewart, suspecting him of plotting to kill him. The enemy suddenly attacked, and I can't hold them off deeply in their territory. Duke, I order you to fight this battle, Prince Lance declared. He thought long and hard, convinced that if he stayed, he would die. He didn't want to perish in the Northwest. As long as he got the credit, it didn't matter who fought the battle. He didn't want to ruin his reputation, so he decided to flee. Eric Stewart pretended to know nothing, acting oblivious. You're right, Prince Lance. You've worked hard, rest now. I've arranged a relay station, Eric Stewart said. Prince Lance then took his confidants and left, not to Eric Stewart's station, but instead spent the night writing to the Emperor. Without waiting for a reply, he decided to leave. He believed Eric Stewart wouldn't dare return, but he would. Favored by the Emperor, Prince Lance felt he couldn't stay there to die. Moreover, his report to the Emperor stated he was injured by the enemy, so returning to heal was crucial. The Northwest had nothing to offer: poor food, shabby accommodations, and not even a beauty to admire. He had endured enough. As expected by Eric Stewart, Prince Lance fled the Northwest overnight. When Seven Moon went to investigate, he indeed found Prince Lance had already left. Your Highness, you truly have foresight like a deity. Prince Lance indeed fled overnight. Speaking of which, the Emperor is really something. What does Prince Lance know about leading troops into battle? If Prince Lance were to lead the army, it would only be a matter of time before we suffered a complete defeat. If not for the fact that His Highness was here to guard the territory, the enemy would have easily invaded, and Prince Lance would have been captured long ago. Now that he's gone, it's time for me to truly showcase my abilities. Eric Stewart had always concealed his strength, precisely to force Prince Lance to leave. Once Prince Lance was gone, he could reorganize the army. Eric Stewart sent a letter back, and before long, Claire Crawford received pastries from Jency's along with a letter from Eric Stewart. However, she was quite clever. Miss Seven Moon, just give me all the letters he left behind, so you don't have to make this trip every few days. Claire Crawford immediately recognized Eric Stewart's tactics. Those love poems were merely left by Eric Stuart before he departed. Although they had a touch of romance, Claire Crawford wasn't interested in them. The practical pastries from Jency's were much more appealing. Miss Crawford, this time it wasn't a letter left behind by His Highness, but rather one delivered personally by the shadow guards of the Qin royal residence. Seven Moon handed the letter to Claire Crawford, and this time, Claire Crawford read Eric Stuart's letter before eating the pastries. The letter contained no sentimental words but stated that he couldn't return for the time being and instructed her to prepare for Prince Lance's return. This was indeed troublesome. Prince Lance was coming back. It was obvious he couldn't handle things over there and thought about sneaking back before achieving any merit. The good days were coming to an end. She didn't want to wait for Prince Lance's return and be disturbed by him daily, so she went to find Marquis Crawford. It seems the Qin prince treats you well. You've already heard about Prince Lance's impending return. Marquis Crawford had also received the news, having placed spies around Prince Lance. When Claire Crawford came to inquire, Marquis Crawford realized she knew as well. Father, I always prioritize you. No matter how well the Qin prince treats me, it's out of respect for you. I know my limits. Claire Crawford began to flatter Marquis Crawford. He enjoyed the praise. No matter how powerful, people still like to hear pleasing words. All right, tell me what you think. Marquis Crawford was also contemplating how to handle relations with Prince Lance upon his return. If they truly go to the court to ask the emperor to annul the engagement, they will surely offend Prince Lance. But if they directly assign her to Vincent Crawford, a reason is still needed. Father, Prince Lance was injured upon his return. I will plead with His Majesty, saying the enemy wounded Prince Lance, and I am willing to go to war in his place to avenge him. This way, I can meet Prince Qin and also convey your concerns to him. However, my abilities are limited, and you must give me some people who are truly our confidants. Claire Crawford calculated this move well. She not only wanted to escape the troubles of the capital but also planned to take along the trusted aides of the Crawford Marquis. Although they are trusted by the Crawford Marquis, couldn't they also become her confidants? That's a good idea, but the Northwest is harsh, and as your father, I feel a bit worried since you are my daughter. Claire Crawford heard the fake concern in the Marquis Crawford's words, knowing he found this method feasible. Father, I'm not afraid. For you, I am willing to do anything. Claire Crawford was also playing a mind game with the Marquis Crawford, making him believe everything she did was for him. The Marquis Crawford felt pleased and naturally would support her. For now, she and Prince Qin still needed the Marquis Crawford's silent assistance, otherwise, Prince Lance would surely cause trouble. With the Marquis Crawford as a barrier, Prince Lance wouldn't be able to stir up much trouble. Chapter 44, destined to be a royal woman. Prince Lance returned to the capital and was scolded by the emperor. You useless fool, what did I send you for? To oversee Prince Qin, yet as the commander, you fled the battle? The emperor was extremely angry. Although Prince Lance was injured this time, the emperor still worried that Prince Qin might be up to something in the northwest. Years ago, Prince Qin managed to establish himself there, earning military respect. If the emperor hadn't discovered it early, the army might not even recognize him as the emperor now. This time, due to a lack of suitable candidates, he reluctantly sent Prince Qin, but still appointed Prince Lance as commander. Unexpectedly, Prince Lance was incompetent and returned first, prompting the emperor to kick him in anger. Royal consort Florence, deeply distressed, hurriedly stood in front of the emperor. Your Majesty, what are you doing? Prince Lance is your most beloved son. This time, he was injured while trying to earn merit for you by infiltrating deep into enemy lines. Instead of rewarding him, why are you hitting him? Royal consort Florence spoke pitifully, bursting into tears and appearing very aggrieved. The emperor couldn't stand royal consort Florence's demeanor. Every time Prince Lance made a mistake, she would cry until the emperor softened. Your Majesty, the Marquis Crawford and Miss Claire Crawford are here, reported Eunuch Benedict. Royal consort Florence was somewhat displeased. Why did the Marquis Crawford bring his precious daughter here now? She intended to use this opportunity, with Prince Qin absent, to advance their marriage. Unexpectedly, the Marquis Crawford brought Claire Crawford to the palace, requesting an audience with the emperor, indicating there might be some changes. Stand up, both of you, the emperor said, seeing others arrive, allowing royal consort Florence and Prince Lance to stand, as it was a royal matter, unrelated to outsiders. The emperor did not want Duke Crawford to witness the commotion. After all, in the emperor's eyes, although Duke Crawford was a high-ranking military official, he could not be fully trusted. Your Majesty, Duke Crawford has brought the third Miss Crawford with him this time, just in time to discuss the marriage with Prince Lance. It has been delayed for so long, it might be good to use the joy to offset the troubles of the Northwest War. The emperor pondered. The Northwest War was initially overseen by General Phoenix Quinn, but after his death, the conflict remained unresolved. Currently, Prince Tan is in the Northwest cleaning up the aftermath. If Prince Lance marries Duke Crawford's daughter, it might be beneficial. But as the emperor thought this, Duke Crawford surely had the same idea, which is why he brought Claire Crawford to the palace. On that day, Claire Crawford was dressed splendidly. Her hair was styled in a graceful bun, adorned with a silver pin shaped like double happiness and prosperity. She held a Hong Yen sword and wore a smoky purple brocade dress embroidered with peacocks, along with cloud-embroidered shoes, as she entered the main hall with Duke Crawford. Eunuch Benedict was startled. Did these people not understand the rules? Reckless, Duke Crawford, does Miss Crawford not understand the rules? Do you also not understand the rules? How can one bring a weapon before His Majesty? Eunuch Benedict kindly reminded Duke Crawford that Claire should not bring a sword into the hall. However, Claire paid no heed to this, and Duke Crawford had his own plans. Your Majesty, this humble woman greets you. Claire knelt down, and in truth, she possessed a familiar aura to the emperor, reminiscent of an old acquaintance. The emperor waved his hand and said, "It's all right, rise. I like the temperament of Princess Ping, she is just like my precious daughter, Amelia." Claire knew the emperor would not punish her. He adored Princess Amelia, even entrusting her with the imperial guards, not just because of the empress, but also because the emperor admired women skilled in martial arts. Claire had observed this. Claire remained kneeling and continued, "Your Majesty, I heard that Prince Lance was injured while infiltrating the enemy camp and has returned." Prince Lance's expression was not good, this was merely his claim. The emperor knew, royal consort Florence knew, and he himself knew. Yet, for the sake of royal dignity, the emperor would never publicly admit this, needing to protect the inept Prince Lance. It was simply that Prince Lance had nothing to boast about. Oh? You've heard as well. Prince Lance was injured and has just returned. Speaking of Prince Lance's return. Your Majesty, Claire boldly interrupted the emperor. Prince Lance was stunned, and royal consort Florence was also surprised, thinking this girl was truly formidable and daring. To interrupt the emperor like this, knowing that if the emperor became angry, it would make her life difficult. Your Majesty, I am unwilling to see Prince Lance return like this. The enemy will look down upon us. I am willing to go to the Northwest in Prince Lance's stead, to lead the army and achieve merit for Your Majesty. Claire Crawford was someone capable of drawing the emperor's bow, the emperor would not regard her as ordinary. But now, Claire was volunteering to go to the Northwest, which truly astonished royal consort Florence. Is the young lady of the Crawford family mad? What kind of place is the Northwest? Your Majesty, Marquis Crawford, look at this, our third Miss Crawford truly has an admirable spirit, but she is still a young lady. Marriage is important, and the harsh winds and sands of the Northwest are too much for her. She shouldn't cause trouble. Besides, she's too young to endure such hardships and lacks the ability to lead an army, royal consort Florence quickly interjected, trying to prevent the young lady from going to the Northwest, where Prince Tan was stationed. The emperor hadn't reacted yet, but she was quick to respond. However, Claire Crawford gave royal consort Florence no chance to speak again. Your Majesty, I am thinking of you. Prince Lance may have lost, but I cannot lose. This concerns your honor, and we cannot let the enemy look down on us. Moreover, with Prince Tan alone in the Northwest, Your Majesty should send someone else after Prince Lance returns to the capital. Right now, I am the most suitable candidate. With that, Claire Crawford suddenly drew her sword and stood up. Immediately, the imperial guards at the door rushed in. Claire Crawford fought them with her sword, even disabling all of them. She had studied the martial arts of the Imperial Guards in anticipation of Prince Lance's return. Furthermore, Claire was well versed in human pressure points, making it easy for her to handle them, whether in single combat or against a group. Marquis Crawford was unaware of when Claire became so skilled, but he wasn't worried. After all, having a capable daughter was beneficial to him. A daughter who was both obedient and formidable was not bad at all. After dealing with the palace guards, Claire Crawford knelt and confessed to the Emperor. "Your Majesty, I indeed offended you, and I accept my guilt. But I wanted to show you that I have the ability to go to the northwest." The Emperor laughed heartily, pleased that Marquis Crawford had raised such a daughter. Moreover, she was to be his future daughter-in-law, which made him very satisfied. Being the daughter of Marquis Crawford was no issue, as a daughter marries into her husband's family. She was destined to be a woman of the royal family. Marquis Crawford has taught his daughter well. She is destined to be a woman of the royal family. I will immediately issue a decree for you to replace Prince Lance as the commander to the northwest. Return victorious from this battle, and I will reward you. Claire Crawford, having achieved her goal, was delighted and nodded at Marquis Crawford. This time, the Emperor agreed because he felt Prince Lance had been disgraced. If Claire Crawford, as Prince Lance's fiancée, could restore their honor, the royal family's dignity would be preserved. Now, only royal consort Florence and Prince Lance were unhappy, upset that a young lady could steal their thunder. Chapter 45, Claire Crawford sets out that evening. Prince Lance deliberately brought various items to the Vincent residence. He claimed it was at the behest of royal consort Florence, suggesting that despite his current injuries, his visit to see Claire Crawford demonstrated their deep affection for one another. However, royal consort Florence's plan was thwarted. Claire Crawford spent the night mustering troops, reorganizing the useless soldiers Prince Lance had brought back. After all, those who fled with Prince Lance from the northwest were cowards. Claire had to take a few with her to appease the Emperor and royal consort Florence, but that didn't mean she would rely on them. Besides, Vincent had provided her with some men. Although not entirely trustworthy, they were at least competent fighters and could be useful in critical moments. Claire Crawford's serious preparations for the campaign made Prince Lance somewhat displeased. When he set out for war, Claire did not see him off. Instead, she was romantically involved with King Tan. Now, with King Tan still in the northwest and Claire wanting to go there too, wasn't this just an opportunity for them to meet? Leaving the residence, Prince Lance was in a foul mood, suspecting the two lovers of planning a secret rendezvous. While drinking at a tavern with friends, someone took advantage of his drunkenness to speak carelessly. The son of the Grand Tutor's household boldly remarked, "Prince Lance, the third lady of the Crawfords is quite capable now, leading troops to the northwest. What can a woman do on the battlefield? Perhaps she's going for a secret meeting with someone." The son of the Minister of Justice chimed in, "Indeed, Prince Lance, shouldn't you keep an eye on her? The third lady of the Crawfords isn't as virtuous as she seems. If she really gives you a green hat, your reputation will be ruined." Furious, Prince Lance threw the cup in front of him, startling those around him. "But having drunk quite a bit," he retorted, "what do you expect me to do? Claire Crawford is indeed capable. While I was injured infiltrating enemy lines, she wants to go to the northwest. The Emperor has decreed it, should I defy the order?" Feeling uneasy, the son of the Grand Tutor offered a suggestion. "Prince Lance, what if you deal with her before she goes to battle? That way, she'll still be yours when she returns." Hearing this, Prince Lance found it reasonable. Claire wasn't a compliant person, she could flirt with King Tan right in front of him. If she were out of his sight, who knows what trouble she'd cause. Fueled by alcohol and frustrated by being blocked by Vincent at the residence, Prince Lance was further agitated. Why should Vincent Crawford be exchanged for Claire Crawford? Claire was favored by his father, the Emperor, and he couldn't let her slip from his grasp. With this in mind, Prince Lance, still in a drunken haze, decided to take action to ensure Claire knew her place. Thus, he headed straight to the camp preparing to set out for the campaign. At this moment, Claire Crawford had organized the army, ready to depart, with everything prepared. Unexpectedly, she saw Prince Lance drunk, frowning. Why was he here? Before setting out, nothing should go wrong. Thus, she gritted her teeth and approached. As soon as she got close to Prince Lance, the strong smell of alcohol hit her nose, making it difficult to breathe. Where on earth did he get so drunk? A person who only knows how to eat and drink, how could the emperor be so blind to choose someone like this as the heir apparent? Prince Lance, it's getting late, you should rest well. I'll arrange for someone to take you back. Claire Crawford wanted to quickly send this drunkard away to avoid delaying her affairs. But Prince Lance was not so obedient. Hearing the gentle tone, he suddenly felt that Claire Crawford might have some affection for him. Wasn't she about to set out? Shouldn't they cultivate some feelings before leaving? I came to see you off. As a woman, why risk your life like this? You shouldn't work so hard, you should come with me. I can at least ensure you live in comfort. Prince Lance staggered, oblivious to how detestable his words were. If Wren Evans, sent by Vincent, hadn't stopped her, Claire Crawford would have surely beaten him senseless. Just seeing him annoyed her. Miss, Prince Lance has a special status, you can't act rashly. If it delays the auspicious time for departure, it would be a loss, Wren Evans reasoned, calming Claire Crawford's anger. Prince Lance, drunken with dazed eyes, seemed oblivious to everything. He even stumbled forward, gripping Claire Crawford. I'm talking to you, why don't you answer? I really like you. Follow me, and I promise never to mistreat you. No matter how many people are in the residence in the future, you will always be my princess, no one can replace you. Before he could finish, he was slapped to the ground, unconscious. Claire Crawford felt it was a miracle she had held back this long. Wren Evans, beside her, didn't even have time to intervene. Claire Crawford acted swiftly. He realized the lady he wanted to follow had quite the capability. Indeed, Vincent had warned him repeatedly to be cautious in everything, even when sending messages, to be wary of his own lady. Truly, she was someone to be cautious of. Now, you take him back yourself and say he got drunk and fell on his own. Next time, don't interfere in front of me. Do your job, understand? If you don't meet my expectations, I'll send you back. The journey is long, so know whose orders to follow. Claire Crawford gave him a stern warning. They hadn't even left yet, and he was already attempting to sway her thoughts. Once they left, who knew where his loyalties would lie? When it's time to discipline, she wouldn't hold back, letting him know the rules and how to behave in the future. Otherwise, upon reaching the northwest, troubles might only increase. The next day, Claire Crawford organized the troops and set off. This time, she carried an imperial edict to the northwest, making her the first female general to lead the vanguard. Although the task in the northwest was merely to clean up the aftermath and didn't require battles, it was enough for Claire Crawford to establish her reputation. Wren Evans took Prince Lance back, pondering how a delicate lady like Claire Crawford could endure the harsh conditions of the battlefield. He doubted she could handle it along the way. Marching and fighting were no joke, it was extremely arduous. How could a lady endure such hardships? Little did Wren Evans know, Claire Crawford had previously led troops in battle and had endured all kinds of hardships. She had even survived being trapped in the desert for over a month. With sufficient provisions this time, it was merely a cleanup task, hardly worth mentioning. Claire Crawford was eager to see Eric Stuart's reaction upon her sudden appearance in the northwest. Surely, he would be shocked, and she was quite eager to witness his startled expression. Chapter 46, beginning the wife-pampering regime in the northwest, Eric Stuart was preparing to conclude his plans just as Prince Lance departed. As soon as Lance left, Eric began strategizing against the enemy forces. The enemy underestimated Eric's army, leading to their entrapment. The enemy commander only escaped after being wounded by an arrow. Although Eric achieved a great victory, the credit was still given to Prince Lance. Lance fled back to the capital, yet he received the accolades, leaving Seven Moon feeling indignant. How could Lance receive recognition without contributing any effort? Your Highness, aren't you angry? Seven Moon was fuming, while Eric remained calm and unbothered. Seven Moon, remember, never get angry over undeserving people or matters. Even if the court credits Prince Lance for the Northwest victory, the one deceiving himself is the Emperor. Everyone knew who truly led the battle, the court officials weren't blind. Those with real abilities don't need others to speak for them, the officials are well aware. Just wait, soon the emperor will send someone. The little power I hold attracts too much attention, Eric remarked, seemingly indifferent. He had long grown used to the emperor's distrust since the day he was abandoned. Who else could the emperor send? Surely someone linked to Prince Lance. Seven Moon devised a plan, unwilling to watch his master be bullied. He secretly ordered his men to create obstacles along the way. Prince Lance suffered from severe diarrhea, bedridden for days, a lesson Seven Moon learned well. For instance, releasing smoke bombs at the main gate, the smoke infused with herbs causing intense itching. The Northwest had everything except poisonous herbs. Unfortunately, Claire Crawford anticipated this, ensuring she and her subordinates took antidote pills beforehand. Ren Evans, when the smoke is released, pretend to faint and capture the leader for me. Ren Evans followed Claire's instructions, feigning unconsciousness, leading to Seven Moon's capture and being brought before Claire. Claire didn't head straight to the Northwest camp but stayed at a relay station. Miss Crawford, why is it you? Seven Moon was shocked to see Claire, as if seeing Prince Lance himself. Claire raised an eyebrow, surprised that such underhanded tactics were Seven Moon's doing. Was Eric Stewart's subordinate so incompetent? Seven Moon, your skills are lacking. You tried to poison others and got caught yourself. If it were someone else, how would your master escape? Your master would be implicated. Claire arrived with the emperor's decree and military authority. As long as Eric Stewart didn't rebel, he had to obey the emperor's orders. Seven Moon was captured and was understandably furious, unable to respond to Claire Crawford's questioning. Seven Moon admits his mistake. His attitude was quite apologetic, which Claire Crawford appreciated. She snatched the token from Seven Moon and tossed it to Ren Evans, instructing, "Send someone to deliver it to Prince Lance, and tell him to meet me at the station personally." This time, Ren Evans complied without question, following Claire Crawford's orders directly. Claire Crawford was pleased with Ren Evans, recognizing that obedient and capable individuals could thrive under her command. Otherwise, the aftermath of the Northwest battle would have claimed their lives. Claire Crawford detained Seven Moon, not to punish him, but to provide him with adequate food and drink, fearing he might leak information if released. If Eric Stewart found out it was her, it would spoil the intrigue. After a refreshing bath to wash away the dust from her travels, Claire Crawford relaxed in the tub. "Just leave the water outside, I'll manage myself," she instructed upon hearing someone enter. The Northwest Station was not as luxurious as her estate, and she required minimal assistance. However, she suddenly felt a chill as if someone was watching her. Alarmed, she quickly grabbed a hairpin and flung it. Eric Stewart caught it effortlessly, stepping into view with one foot on the edge of the tub. Claire Crawford exclaimed, "Heavens, Prince Lance, how did you get in?" Eric Stewart remained silent. Claire Crawford took a deep breath and asked, "How did you know it was me?" Realizing her question was naive, she understood that only Ren Evans could have informed Eric Stewart, either betraying her or being in league with him. "Ren Evans is your man?" "Prince Lance, that's not right," she remarked, eyeing her clothes just out of reach. If she made a move, it would reveal her vulnerability. She wanted to gouge his eyes out but was momentarily at a loss. "Prince Lance, shouldn't you react like a normal man when seeing a woman bathing?" Claire Crawford leaned back against the tub, her hand discreetly reaching for a powder box nearby. Tossing it at Eric Stewart, she used the distraction to quickly dress. Eric Stewart observed her for a while before remarking, "Not bad, indeed. You have a nice figure." Claire Crawford was furious but held back her anger. Once dressed, she flung the Emperor's decree at Eric Stewart without bothering to read it. Claire Crawford's presence was a pleasant surprise for Eric Stewart. If the victory was credited to Prince Lance, Eric Stewart would lose out. But if it went to Claire Crawford, it was different. He considered her his future partner. Was the journey tiring? Eric Stewart asked, concerned about Claire Crawford. The dusty, harsh weather of the Northwest had been challenging. Claire Crawford wiped her face, noticing her skin had dried out. "Of course, it was tiring. I came to the Northwest for your mother's sake, remember this favor," she said. Having mingled with rough soldiers, she often forgot her noble upbringing, but now she felt exhausted returning to her former self. "Come on, let's go for a walk," Eric Stewart suggested, ignoring the decree. Neither cared much for it. As for the military seal, Eric Stewart didn't hand it over immediately, and Claire Crawford didn't bother to ask. Despite the Northwest's hardships, recent victories had brought peace to the city. Eric Stewart, skilled at pleasing Claire Crawford, took her to enjoy delicious food. Satisfied by the meal, Claire Crawford's mood improved. The lamb skewers sprinkled with cumin and spicy pepper soup delighted her, feeling authentic compared to the lavish meals prepared for Prince Lance, tailored to his tastes, which were worlds apart. "When do you plan to return?" Claire Crawford asked, having come merely for a visit. The Emperor had sent her to prevent Eric Stewart from claiming the glory, but he hadn't anticipated their alliance. "Not yet. The enemy hasn't given up, and we might need to make an example of them again," Eric Stewart replied, concerned that after their departure, the enemy might return to harass the border towns. For the people, war was a disaster. Chapter 47, sharing a bed as expected, Eric Stewart's prediction was correct, the enemy attacked once more. Previously, the enemy leader was shot by Eric Stewart and sought to reclaim his honor this time. Eric Stewart and Claire Crawford deliberately spread false information, suggesting that the Emperor distrusted Eric Stewart and had revoked his military command, and that Prince Lance, who was not the future, was sent instead. This news spread among the enemy forces. The enemy leader believed that a woman leading the army would surely make mistakes, so he planned to secretly kidnap Claire Crawford. Unfortunately for him, traps had already been set around Claire Crawford's quarters. Inside, Claire Crawford and Eric Stewart enjoyed a meal of mutton hot pot and Northwestern specialty wine, savoring the flavors. It wasn't until there was commotion outside that Claire Crawford grabbed a wine jug and stepped out, only to see the enemy general tied up and brought before her. "Oh my, you really intended to kidnap me? Why? Did I eat all your rice?" Claire Crawford chuckled, her cheeks flushed from the wine, her eyes sparkling mischievously, making her even more captivating. Eric Stewart quickly stepped forward to support her. Claire Crawford was excellent in every way, except she became a bit uncontrollable when drunk, which was somewhat troublesome. "Don't hold me, I'm not drunk," Claire Crawford pushed Eric Stewart away, downing the rest of the wine in her hand. The enemy leader stared at the woman in disbelief. "I don't accept this, it's a trick. If you have the guts, fight me in a fair duel. If I lose, I'll serve you like a horse or ox." The burly man, clearly not the brightest, challenged. Claire Crawford found it odd that the enemy would send someone like him to battle. However, he certainly had skills, as his martial arts were clearly advanced, indicating a practitioner of hard techniques. "All right, I'll give you this chance," Claire Crawford said, breaking the wine jug in her hand and retrieving the red beauty sword from inside. It was the sword Eric Stewart had left for her in the capital. Eric Stewart, worried about Claire Crawford's inebriation, tried to stop her. "You're drunk. Today, wait until tomorrow when you're sober to duel him." But Claire Crawford was not one to listen obediently. "I don't want to. Although the army takes me as the leader, they ultimately follow your orders. I came here by imperial decree, holding military authority, with no intention of taking control of the army, but I also don't want to be underestimated." In recent days, Claire Crawford had heard many speak ill of her behind her back. They said the third Miss Crawford, the fiancée of Prince Lance, was now seducing the Duke. If this woman entered the military camp, she would only have superficial skills. Claire Crawford drew the red beauty sword, standing in the courtyard in her white attire, her hair unkempt, casually tied into a bun, and raised an eyebrow at the enemy general. "You said it yourself, I'll give you a chance. If you lose, you'll serve me. If I lose, I'll let you go." Hearing this, the man felt he had a chance to leave. "Will you keep your word?" he asked. Claire Crawford nodded. "I hold military authority, I have some power." With that, they began to duel. Seven Moon watched from the side, a bit worried. "Your Grace, aren't you going to stop her? Miss Crawford is drunk, how can she act so recklessly?" Seven Moon was concerned that if Claire Crawford lost and released the enemy, it would unsettle the troops. Eric Stewart, holding a wine jug, took a sip and laughed. asking, "Where's Ren Evans? What do you think?" Ren Evans, who had been sent by Eric Stewart as a spy to the Marquis residence, had been successful for many years. In fact, Ren Evans was smart, even smarter than Seven Moon. Mason Mount may practice hard martial arts, but Miss Crawford won't confront him directly. Mason Mount is unprepared and will likely lose, Ren Evans predicted. Seven Moon was skeptical, but before he could question it, Mason Mount had already fallen to the ground. Despite being drunk, Claire Crawford's sword remained steady, pointed directly at Mason Mount's throat. "You lost," Claire Crawford said with disdain, and Mason Mount couldn't believe he had been defeated by a woman. He had joined the enemy forces to compete with Eric Stewart, but this time, he lost to a woman. "Who are you?" he asked, truly unaware of Claire Crawford's identity. Wasn't she supposed to be the third lady of the Marquis household? Wasn't she said to be incapable of even tying up a chicken? Wasn't she just someone sent to deal with Eric Stewart? Not only was he outsmarted, but he was also defeated by a woman. Flower fists and embroidered legs, is that all you have to win? Claire Crawford glanced at Mason Mount with contempt, sheathed her sword, and slowly walked into the room. Seven Moon paid no attention to Mason Mount, who was a temporary general recruited by the enemy. The enemy leaders saw Mason Mount as a competent fighter and someone eager to defeat Eric Stewart, so they sent him here. But Mason Mount had lost. Not only did he lose, but he also gambled away the rest of his life to Claire Crawford. This person kept his promise, standing in the courtyard without leaving. After the fight, Claire Crawford felt hungry and went inside to eat hot pot, while Eric Stewart couldn't help but laugh, standing beside her, chuckling continuously. "Eric Stewart, I joined the army to fight you openly. If you're a man, face me in a fair fight," Mason Mount shouted from outside, seemingly ignoring what was happening inside and only wanting to fight Eric Stewart. However, Seven Moon stopped him mercilessly. "Mason Mount, you lost to Miss Crawford. You couldn't even defeat a woman, yet you want to fight our prince? Stay here and serve Miss Crawford, that's enough." Seven Moon's words left Mason Mount speechless. That night, Claire Crawford drank quite a bit, rarely staying in the capital or at the Marquis residence, free from the constraints of etiquette. Ultimately, Eric Stewart carried her back, not even sparing Mason Mount a glance. When Claire Crawford woke up the next day, she found Eric Stewart also in bed. Oh my God! Claire Crawford was startled. Although she was free-spirited, she still maintained some boundaries between men and women. Did Eric Stewart not know this? She kicked the sleeping Eric Stewart out of bed. Eric Stewart, groggy from the fall, angrily asked, "Why did you kick me?" Claire Crawford glared at Eric Stewart, though she was still in her nightclothes, she felt the need to pretend. Men and women should maintain distance. Doesn't the prince know this principle? Faced with Claire Crawford's question, Eric Stewart tried to recall the events of the previous night. Claire Crawford, drunk, wanted to wander off, and he, having drunk quite a bit himself, struggled to keep her in check. She mistook him for someone else, repeatedly apologizing and crying, which broke his heart. Eric Stewart had no choice but to hold her on the bed. Claire Crawford thought he hadn't forgiven her, refused to hug her, so he reluctantly embraced her, thinking there was no one else around anyway. How did it become his fault now? "Claire Crawford, tell me honestly, who exactly do you think I am?" Eric Stewart pressed Claire Crawford, staring into her eyes, seeking the truth. But Claire Crawford couldn't remember the previous night's events and wouldn't admit anything. Her eyes avoiding his gaze, she said, "What nonsense are you talking about? If you dare sleep in my bed again, I'll kill you." Claire Crawford appeared fierce, but she was merely using anger to hide the fact that she mistook Eric Stewart for someone else. Eric Stewart got up from the bed, put on his robe indifferently, and said, "Anyway, sooner or later, you'll be my woman. Getting used to sleeping together isn't a big deal." As he opened the door, Claire Crawford kicked him out. That scoundrel, what nonsense was he spouting? Claire Crawford took a deep breath and stepped out of the room, only to find Mason Mount had been guarding her door all night. Although she was drunk the previous night and her memory was foggy, she still remembered Mason Mount. Oh, you do keep your word. Was he really willing to serve her? Of course, I, Mason Mount, keep my promises. Mason Mount had guarded Claire Crawford's door all night, and Claire Crawford happened to be in need of subordinates. Chapter 48, How to Share a Bed Without Undressing. Claire Crawford didn't mind, but if Mason Mount truly kept his promise, he might actually be useful. When she went out for breakfast, she heard that the enemy troops had retreated. It was said that this time the enemy's commander suffered a devastating defeat and even lost a general. Claire Crawford didn't need to ask to know who this general was. Mason Mount indeed did what he said. He followed Claire Crawford closely. To those unaware, it might seem like he intended to assassinate someone, clearly unwilling yet helplessly trailing behind her, unable to do anything. When Claire Crawford reached the camp, she saw Mason Mount and said, "If you're unwilling, just go back to where you came from. I won't announce it everywhere if you break your promise. But if you want to follow me, then behave and wait for me here." After saying this, Claire Crawford entered the camp. Since she came alone, no one paid much attention. Inside the large tent, Eric Stewart, Seven Moon, and Ren Evans were discussing military matters, along with several deputy generals. These deputies didn't particularly like Claire Crawford, but they knew she was skilled. After all, anyone who could defeat Mason Mount even when drunk wasn't ordinary. "What's this? Discussing military matters without inviting me?" Claire Crawford seemed to be picking a fight. However, when everyone hesitated, Eric Stewart smiled. Seeing that no one knew what to say, he spoke up, "We're preparing to return. The defense arrangements in the Northwest will rely on the deputy generals staying behind. Do you really want to stay in this scorching, windy place?" Claire Crawford raised an eyebrow, acknowledging the point. Although the food in the Northwest wasn't bad, eating meat every day was tiresome. Moreover, the sandstorms were too harsh, and her delicate face was at risk of cracking. "Well, you continue your discussion. I'll rest over there." Claire Crawford didn't intend to leave. The Emperor had spies in the camp, and as the commander, she needed to be present. If she wasn't, what would these people discuss? A minor report sent back could make Eric Stewart's return difficult. Didn't they think? Claire Crawford had good intentions, and Eric Stewart understood, so she sat idly by. Having drunk too much the previous night, her stomach was still uneasy, and she soon fell asleep. When Eric Stewart finished the important discussions, Claire Crawford was sleeping soundly in her chair, drooling. Eric Stewart chuckled and wiped her drool, leaving Seven Moon and Ren Evans stunned. Seven Moon, who always served Eric Stewart, knew his cleanliness obsession. He wouldn't even touch women who threw themselves at him, let alone wipe someone else's drool. Yet, Eric Stewart not only wiped Claire Crawford's drool without disgust but also picked her up. Claire Crawford, half asleep, woke up as Eric Stewart carried her out of the tent. She struggled to get down. "What? Are you embarrassed?" Claire Crawford wasn't embarrassed, she was cold from the harsh wind. "Hurry and finish your business here. I've had enough of this place." No wonder Prince Lance rushed back, this place truly is unique. The weather was unbearably hot during the day and freezing at night, with drastic temperature differences. "Here, take this," Eric Stewart said, handing her a small, exquisite box containing a facial cream for women. Claire Crawford was surprised. Why would Eric Stewart, a man, have this? Seven Moon then exclaimed, "I wondered why the prince went to a brothel, turns out it was to buy this." "A brothel?" Claire Crawford frowned. The Northwest was. Unlike other places, local people rarely bought cosmetics, so such items were scarce, if available at all. Claire Crawford's skin had been unbearably dry, and Eric Stewart had noticed. "Seven Moon, if you don't speak, no one will think you're mute," Eric Stewart said, glaring at Seven Moon, who quickly fell silent. Claire Crawford, in a good mood after being comforted by Eric Stewart, enjoyed a bowl of hot lamb soup in the evening, easing her stomach discomfort. She silently vowed never to drink again, thinking it was a burden too heavy to bear. The whole day she felt lethargic, her body aching as if it wasn't hers. "Why are you still here? Aren't you going to sleep?" Claire Crawford stared at Eric Stewart, wondering why he hadn't left. Eric Stewart, in a playful mood, stood up and leaned closer, saying, "We shared a bed last night, why not continue tonight?" Teasing her? Last night Claire was drunk, and this morning she hadn't quite sobered up. Now, she was fully alert and energetic. Did Eric really think he could tease her? Overestimating his wit, wasn't he? All right then, Claire said, grabbing Eric's collar and pushing him onto the bed. Her actions nearly frightened Eric, leaving him unsure of her intentions. Wasn't she blushing this morning? Why the sudden change? What are you doing? Eric asked, feeling like a helpless damsel, while Claire went further, reaching for his belt, saying, "Didn't you want to share a bed with me, Your Highness? How can we do that with clothes on?" Eric was scared. His usual carefree talk was part of his nature, liking to tease Claire. But now, with Claire actually pushing him onto the bed, he didn't know what to do. "Why have you changed so much?" Eric tried to get up, but Claire held him down. This morning she was blushing, and now it was Eric's turn. Indeed, what goes around comes around. Eric's face turned crimson as Claire pinned him down, leaving him flustered. "Tell me, Your Highness, are you a virgin?" Claire asked, making Eric's face flush even more. Her words provoked Eric, who pushed her away, quickly standing to adjust his clothes. "Guessing I'm a virgin?" "Wrong. Aren't you one too?" Eric said, realizing his mistake and correcting, "I've been through many battles. Once you marry me, you'll see." Claire watched Eric flee, laughing openly. Who would have thought Eric Stewart, a prince, was actually a virgin? That night, Claire slept soundly. The next morning, upon waking and opening the door, she found Eric Stewart standing guard. "What's going on? Isn't Mason Mount supposed to be on duty? Why is the prince here?" Claire was startled to see Eric. Eric looked at her, then narrowed his eyes and grabbed her arm. "I'm here to confirm something," he said, inspecting her wrist and finding the chastity mark, finally relieved. "I thought you were wild, but you're just like me." "No, you're the virgin and dared to laugh at me," Eric said, his tendency to dig himself deeper evident. Claire laughed without restraint. Yes, Your Highness, you've been through many battles. I'm just a virgin. But discussing this publicly with me, aren't you embarrassed?" Eric was left speechless. Wasn't this supposed to be his line? How could Claire turn it on him? What kind of mind did she have? Wasn't she embarrassed? Claire ignored Eric, deciding it was time to return. She needed to check if her modified carriage was ready, as it concerned her comfort on the way back. Chapter 49, The fresh green horn on my head. On the journey, Claire Crawford sat comfortably in her carriage, while Eric Stewart rode outside, exposed to the wind and sun. However, Eric Stewart couldn't endure for long, and by the afternoon, he had slipped into Claire Crawford's carriage. Although the carriage wasn't large, it was quite spacious and well-equipped. There was an automatic fan for hot weather, thick blankets for cold weather, and even a smokeless heater. Miss Crawford certainly knows how to enjoy life. "I doubt many in the capital have such resources," Eric Stewart commented, clearly complimenting Claire Crawford, though she didn't seem to appreciate it. "Have you been enlightened, Your Highness?" "There will be more to see in the future," Claire Crawford replied with the air of an elder sister, prompting Eric Stewart to reassess her. Previously, she pretended to be a refined lady, but outside the capital, she transformed into this bold character. However, he genuinely liked it. If Claire Crawford were like the other noble ladies in the capital, Eric Stewart might not have been interested. Now, seeing her genuine and straightforward nature, Eric Stewart found himself quite fond of her. As the carriage slowly moved forward, nearing the capital, both of them were dozing off. Suddenly, the carriage stopped, and a drowsy Claire Crawford, seeking more comfort, rested her head on Eric Stewart's lap. Despite the saying that men and women should maintain distance, her fatigue made her indifferent to such norms. Then, the carriage curtain was lifted. The stern face of Prince Lance appeared before them, seemingly on the verge of drawing his sword in anger. Claire Crawford, half asleep, opened her eyes to find Prince Lance glaring at her furiously, exclaiming, "Claire Crawford, you are quite something. I personally came to welcome you, and this is how you repay me?" "Ha!" Only then did Claire Crawford realize who had arrived. She rubbed her eyes and, still a bit groggy, asked, "Prince Lance? Am I dreaming? Why would I dream of him?" It wasn't until Eric Stuart stifled his laughter that Claire Crawford fully grasped the situation and rubbed her forehead. All right, it was indeed Prince Lance. Prince Lance, why are you here? Claire Crawford lifted the curtain and glared at Ren Evans standing guard outside. You're useless. Prince Lance is here, why didn't you announce it? Do you realize your mistake for letting him be displeased? Ren Evans didn't argue, he had done it on purpose. He intentionally let Prince Lance see the scene inside, knowing it would anger him. But he was aware of his fault. I acknowledge my mistake, Ren Evans replied without arrogance or flattery, and Claire Crawford knew he understood his wrongdoing. You male and female dogs, I want to kill you, Prince Lance fumed, speaking incoherently. Clearly lacking the ability, yet still wanting to act. Why doesn't he understand himself a little better? In the end, isn't he the one who suffers? Claire Crawford shook her head, then got out of the carriage, looking at the furious Prince Lance. Your Highness, Prince Lance, have you really thought this through? You want to kill me? Claire Crawford retorted. Seeing no response from Prince Lance, Claire Crawford chuckled, with a hint of mockery, and continued, this time I returned with military achievements, cleaning up the mess you left behind. If it weren't for me, you'd probably be cursed by the Northwestern people for deserting in battle, bullying the populace daily, and claiming to infiltrate enemy lines. Weren't you injured by an enemy attack? Prince Lance's face turned pale, he had lied about his return. At that time, the Emperor sent Claire Crawford to the Northwest to take over Prince Lance's chaotic situation because she was his fiancée. Surely Claire Crawford wouldn't turn against Prince Lance, right? But now, with her victorious return, Prince Lance immediately offended her. Your Highness, Prince Lance, be careful with your words next time, or I won't bear the blame for such foul accusations, Claire Crawford said before slowly returning to the carriage. She then instructed, Mason Mount, guard the carriage. Anyone who dares to be disrespectful, kill without mercy. Ren Evans' mouth twitched, Your Highness, I've tried my best. From now on, I'll only follow the orders of the princess consort. You take care of yourself. Eric Stuart, after Claire Crawford's outburst, got off the carriage and reminded, Miss Crawford, you've taken care of me well along the way. Your kindness is etched in my heart. Taken care of? Kindness? Claire Crawford didn't know what she had done for Eric Stuart. Was he trying to make things even more chaotic? At this moment, Prince Lance felt as if he was wearing a green hat. If he could endure this grudge, he wouldn't be the Prince Lance who commands the winds and rains. He wanted to cause trouble but was pulled back by his guards. Royal Consort Florence's idea was for him to personally welcome Claire Crawford, not to cause a scene. Everyone should know that Claire Crawford and he are deeply in love, pushing Duke Quinn aside. But with Duke Quinn causing a commotion, and Prince Lance getting angry midway, now everyone knows Claire Crawford and Prince Lance's relationship isn't good, and she has a good relationship with Duke Quinn. Later, Claire Crawford and Eric Stuart entered the palace together to report to the Emperor about the Northwestern battle. Claire Crawford naturally received honors and was assigned to work under Princess Amelia, officially participating in court affairs. The Crawford family also received rewards thanks to Claire Crawford. Eric Stuart only received some lukewarm praise, nothing more. But Prince Lance received nothing this time. In Eric Stuart's mind, since he didn't receive honors, and neither did Prince Lance, it was a draw. Currently, Claire Crawford's heart is with him, and Prince Lance is humiliated, making this a major victory. Claire Crawford and the Crawford family returned to their estate, traveling together in a carriage. The head of the Crawford family asked, I heard at the city gate, Prince Lance stopped your carriage with Duke Quinn inside, causing quite a stir. The Emperor couldn't ignore this, yet didn't mention it today. Father, Duke Quinn has gained great prestige in the Northwest. Although I followed the imperial decree, I can't win the favor of the troops like Duke Quinn. If you can win over Duke Quinn, it will surely be beneficial in the future, which is why I've allied with him, Claire Crawford explained. The head of the Crawford family nodded, sharing the same thought. Duke Quinn is capable, able to lead troops into battle, and possesses a treasure, making him more suitable for the throne than Prince Lance. Currently, all the civil and military officials are choosing their leader, and the Emperor is hesitating. But the head of the Crawford family can't gamble, so he must keep both options open. Prince Lance won't give up, nor will Duke Qin. After you rest for a while, I'll arrange matters between your second sister and Prince Lance, making your relationship with Duke Qin legitimate. You've endured a lot of gossip during this time, the head of the Crawford family said, feeling somewhat sorry for Claire Crawford. After all, she is still Prince Lance's fiancée in name, and he believes Claire Crawford maintains this relationship with Duke Qin for his sake. Dad, if you feel your daughter is aggrieved, then compensate her a little more. I heard Princess Amelia manages the army very strictly. If I am not capable enough, you must assist me. Lord Crawford nodded, thinking that forming a connection with Princess Amelia was beneficial, as the palace guards were not to be underestimated. However, since the marriage between Princess Amelia and General Phoenix Qin was annulled, the Emperor hadn't arranged any marriage for her.